It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be with all of you. So thank you for taking time out of your day to come here. What I'll be speaking about today is finding joy, looking at both scientific and Buddhist perspectives. So this is not going to be a trick question, but I'm going to be asking for a showing of hands. Who wants to be happy? We have one person. Oh, he just got a hand up in the back. Okay. Usually there's one or two people way in the back that don't raise their hand until I embarrass them. And then we get 100%, I want to be happy. Great, good. So the question then is, what is the source of true happiness? What's the source? Well, I think the Venerable Master has given us some hints. He said, do not blame others for your unhappiness, for everything is due to cause and effect. The Dalai Lama went even further. He said, compassion is the source of true happiness. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more, and also what my take is on the definition of compassion. He also said something else that I find very powerful. If science proves that some beliefs of Buddhism are wrong, then Buddhism will have to change. Hundreds of years ago, everyone thought the world was flat. Okay, that's the way it was. One or two people raised their hand and said, no, it's round. We wouldn't make any advancements if we just stuck with what we were taught, unless we're willing to do observation, dialogue, and debate. It's the core, it's the cornerstone to both scientific and medical discovery. So those who are theologians or those who are immersed in religions should also be open to that same concept. It's crucial for growth. So as an example, Judaism has been around of all the major religions, present religions, for over 5,000 years. And there's a joke that if you put two Jewish people in a room at the same time, you will get at least 3 opinions, if not more. So when I've been in the Himalayas with my Tibetan colleagues, debate is very, very common, and it's part and parcel to what they do. So, what is the recipe for happiness? Remember, I was talking about science. Well, science suggests nothing is proven in this world. There are 5 external factors that are central to achieving happiness. So what are they? And this is regardless of your financial status, unless you're extremely poor. First, adequate shelter. Second, adequate food. Third, potable water. Fourth, a secure environment. And a study out of Harvard that's been going on since 1938, taking men from an impoverished part of Boston, has followed them longitudinally since then to find out what was the common denominator that helped in determining who was going to be happy. And what they found, meaningful personal relationships. That's what's key, meaningful personal relationships. So it doesn't necessarily have to be specific family members, biological family members, as long as you have a few meaningful personal relationships. So that's the external factors. Okay, once you have those 5 in place, then what I would suggest is everything else comes from internal. Okay? The fact is that we can't control everything that happens in our external environment. We just can't, no matter how much you try. But How we respond is a choice. That's the key. That's the key. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So how good are we at handling life's challenges? Well, the studies are kind of bleak, to be honest with you. Prior to the pandemic and our toxic political environment, this is in the US, 60% of US adults live with chronic stress. And actually, believe it or not, in Canada, which I love it, love Canada, the statistics are actually the same, maybe slightly better, but not a whole heck of a lot. So just, don't get too down on us American citizens. This is a fake photograph of my granddaughter. I said, show me a mad face. So she showed me a mad face so I could take her picture. But the point is that those who regularly care for children, 41% say that on most days they're so stressed out they can barely function. So think about that. Versus 20 who were non-caregivers. Now, the serious thing here is that stress affects the fetus. So a mother carrying a fetus, the physiologic changes are felt for decades later. You can actually measure the effect of stress on children as they develop, and you can see it decades later. Okay? Here's another one. Stress causes shrinkage of the brain's frontal cortex. It actually affects the anatomy of your brain if you're exposed to a lot of stress. Stress increases the risk of a myriad of physical illnesses. Here's a list of just some. And the incidence of these conditions is going up around the world. Equally concerning is the effect on emotions. Emotional illness is also going up. And these are just some of the statistics. What I would like to suggest, building on what we've already talked about, is that true happiness can only be achieved by living a balanced life. Inner harmony, living in balance. That's the book. Okay? But guided by wisdom and compassion. So let's define what we mean by wisdom and compassion and balance. Well, let's start with wisdom. What is wisdom? I'd like to suggest it's making choices guided by the heart and mind. It's not just being book smart. There are people that are really book smart and people that are not educated in the formal way at all that have great wisdom, but they don't necessarily go hand in hand, okay? So what do I mean by guided by the heart and the mind? The heart and the mind are interconnected and interdependent, okay? That's internally, okay? They're not separate, okay? When I was first with His Holiness, he kept talking about the heart mind. I didn't have the slightest idea what he was talking about, okay? But because apparently the heart and mind in a lot of Asian cultures, there's no separate word for heart versus mind. It's one word, and it comes from the Sanskrit sita. Okay, and I'm getting a couple of nods of yes, so hopefully I'm reasonably on track. So as an example, in medicine, medicine is not just science, it's also an art. So it's not just taking down data, it's also looking at the patient, seeing how their body is responding, are their eyes downcast, the intangibles. So wisdom requires critical thinking, whether it's in a theologian or whether it's dealing with your child or any of those things. Critical thinking, warm-heartedness, interpersonal skills. And it's the same, as I said, in all relationships. What is compassion? This is where I'm going to get a little controversial, okay? So bear with me as I get a little controversial here. I would suggest that compassion is a commitment to respond with kindness toward those who might benefit. Those who might benefit. Remember when I'm using that phrase, what I'm going to be meaning. Motivated by a true concern for the well-being of the person you're trying to help. Not out of personal gain, like I'm going to get a reward, but just out of a true, authentic concern. That's true when I go and get a little ice cream, and if I smile a little extra so I get a little bit of extra hot fudge on it, I'm going to get something in return by being nice, okay? I admit it. But generally speaking, what we want to do is we want to have an authentic concern for whoever it is that we're helping. So here's a question. Are we born compassionate, or is it an acquired social skill? The studies in science are kind of wishy-washy on that. Some would suggest that 80% of people are born compassionate. Other studies, well, maybe not so much. Maybe by age 1 or 2 years old, you learn compassion, and most people are compassionate, okay? But that's still not confirmed. So why do I say respond with kindness toward those who might benefit? And this is important. This is really important. Rather than those who are suffering. Those who are suffering. Okay. Suffering is a term that's used a lot in Buddhism and in other religions. Okay. But here's what I would like to suggest. Suffering is a mistranslation of dukkha, the Sanskrit dukkha. Sukha, the antonym, means at ease, satisfactory, imbalance. Dukkha means non-ease, out of balance, unsatisfactory. That's different than suffering. The initial analogy was probably the wheels of an ox cart being out of alignment, out of balance. So if the tires on your car are out of balance, it's going to wear down, right? Okay. Why is that important? It's important because I can relate to people that are out of balance. I'm out of balance, okay? But I don't want to look at you. I don't want to look at a baby. I don't want to look at a bird and be nice to them because, oh, they're suffering. And I'll explain more why that's important. First, internal balance. Let's talk about internal balance. Internal balance doesn't mean going from a chaotic life to suddenly everything's tranquil and you're up on a mountaintop and you're just, you're meditating all day and night. But what it does mean is staying in what's called the resiliency zone. We're going to have fluctuations throughout the day. The question is, are we going to get out of balance, out of that healthy zone, too euphoric, out of context with reality, and or too depressed, out of context with what's really going on, okay? I like this 3-stanza quote from the Dalai Lama. He said, man and woman, I have 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters, so I want to get them in there too, sacrifices his health for money, then sacrifices money to recuperate. That doesn't make any sense, but that's the imbalance. He is so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present. Imbalance. He lives as if he's never going to die, then dies having never really lived. What I'd like to suggest is, first, achieving balance requires nurturing what makes you whole. Okay? As a person myself, sure, I have a background as a physician. That's part of who I am. But to stamp on my forehead, that's who Jon Kolkin is, that's all he is an imbalance. Because when I was born, no one told me I was going to be a physician. There were lots of things that interest me. So it's important for me to try to strategize to find that balance, to not try to suppress those things that make me whole. Otherwise, I'm going through life and I'm frustrated and I don't know why. Okay? So that's really, really important. Now, it's true that throughout our lives we have to titrate things. If you're in the middle of working on your PhD, you have to spend more time on it. But there are strategies you can use so you don't lose track of all these other things that make you whole. So ask yourself, just for a minute, what is important to me? Ask yourself, let's just take a minute. What's important to me? What are your priorities? Are they in line with what would keep you in balance? And how well do my actions align with my core values? Are my personal and professional goals realistic? Are they realistic and in alignment with my core values? Well, if we're trying to learn how to prioritize throughout our day so that we can get better balance, it's important to recognize that core values help in determining long-term goals. If we don't know what our long-term goals are, then how are we going to figure out what our daily priorities are and our daily actions? Because we have hundreds and hundreds of choices we have to make throughout the day. All of you made the choice to come here. That was a conscious decision, okay? Hopefully guided by your goals, which were hopefully guided by your core values. So I like this little exercise that's called the 24 stone rule. So just visualize 24 stones in a pile. Each stone represents 1 hour of your day. Now what I'd like you to do is take them and put them in piles. How many stones are in my sleep pile? How many are in my social media pile? How many are in my exercise pile? How many are in my family pile? However you define family. How many are in my work pile? Think about that. Think about that just for a minute. So you're going to come up with stacks, okay? So let's think about something that you really enjoyed when you were younger, but darn it, you just haven't had enough time to do it, okay? Because you have all these other responsibilities. But it's one of those things you really miss, and it was nurturing when you were involved in it before. Could you take one of those stones out of one of those piles, cut it into 4 pieces, which means 15 minutes, and twice a week, 15 minutes, put it onto your calendar and commit to doing that for 4 weeks. Whether it's just sitting in a closet and closing the door for 15 minutes, anything, whatever it might be. Set yourself up for success. Don't say, I'm going to take 2 stones every day for the next 6 months and do something, because you're setting yourself up for failure. These aren't New Year's resolutions, okay? Set yourself up for success. And then if it turns out to be something you don't want to keep going, pick something else. Do that 15 minutes twice a week for 4 weeks. And then reassess and say, that was pretty good. I think I'm going to increase that to 3 times a week, or I'm going to do a half hour the next time, whatever it might be. So take gradual steps, and that'll help hopefully get you more back in balance. External balance. I really like this quote, 3-stanza quote from the Jewish scholar Hillel from the BCE. He said, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? If I'm only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? Compassion for self balanced with compassion for others, but it requires action, not just thinking about it. Now, the action might be, I need to just step back from something, like helping someone that you've been trying to help and trying to help and trying to help, and it hasn't worked out, okay? So that action may be stepping back, or maybe getting involved in something. So I mentioned Bhutan is kind of my place, my go-to place. So during the pandemic, they shut down the whole country, even though their major source of income were 2 things, hydroelectric power that they sell and revenue from tourism. And the fifth king, who's shown here, said, what we're going to do is we're going to get enough vaccine to vaccinate every member of the adult population throughout the whole country, spread out all over the Himalayas, against COVID. It's not a requirement, but we're going to set 14 days aside for everyone to get vaccinated that wants to get vaccinated, and I'm going to wait to the 14th day to get vaccinated because I want to make sure everyone else gets an opportunity before me. Compassion, wisdom, okay? Guess what? Within 14 days, 98% of the population was vaccinated, okay? Balance, compassion for self, compassion for others, wisdom, all comes together. Beware of affective empathy, sharing the pain of others, okay? That's the classic definition of affective empathy. There are at least 25 different types of empathy, but this is the one that people relate to most often. Sharing the pain of others, holding on to the pain of others, carrying the pain of others. Sounds like a great idea, but I'm asking you to be very, very careful, and I'll explain why. Studies, first of all, the studies that tout the benefits of affective empathy are typically flawed. And as a physician, someone also trained in the science of how to evaluate studies, I can tell you that the studies that tout the benefits of carrying the pain of others, number one, major problem, small sample size. Number two, they often attribute results championing affective empathy without considering the influence of the 24 other subtypes of empathy. Number three, no long-term follow-up. Can you imagine a physician doing an operation and say, gosh, the patient looks great 2 weeks later, publish a paper, and then everybody thinks, well, wow, that's the thing to do, with no long-term follow-up? It wouldn't make any sense at all. And the most important thing is no consideration of affective empathy's contribution to chronic stress and poor health. I already talked about chronic stress and its impact on your health. So the reality is that affective empathy impacts all those things, holding on to the pain of others. Can you imagine a physician holding on to the pain of every patient that they see? Sure, feeling someone else's pain is instinctive for most people. But holding on to their pain, whether intentional or not, causes chronic stress, which is, as I said, dangerous to our health. It can also cloud our judgment. So if you see a photograph of someone somewhere in the world that's crying or in pain, you immediately, some people get mad. Somebody else is responsible for that. I have to hate that other person or that other group because this person's in pain. Can be totally out of context and not taking all the factors into consideration. So it clouds our judgment, and then we can do more harm than good. Repeatedly absorbing the pain of others, again, contributes to anxiety and chronic empathic distress. Numerous stress-related physical and emotional illnesses, like I said before. Empathic fatigue, not compassion fatigue. People use those terms interchangeably. It's not compassion fatigue, based on the definition I was providing before. It's empathic fatigue, exhaustion, social burnout, disengagement. So we all know that we're getting bombarded with all this negativity in the news, and after a while, you just want to shut it all off. And then despite wanting to help, it ends up having the absolute negative effect because you get burned out, you get sick, and you can't keep it going. So being motivated by hate, being motivated by anger, being motivated by the person's, quote, suffering is very, very unhealthy. Compassion can only be sustained if energized by joy, by positive reinforcement. Now, sure, there are cases where absorbing the pain of others can be done successfully. His Holiness the Dalai Lama can do it, and a few others can. But they required extensive training under expert supervision. In Tibetan Buddhism, that's called Tonglen. Also, it's important to emphasize that sharing in someone else's pain is not a prerequisite to responding to their condition with compassion. As I said, you might feel someone's pain temporarily, but do you have a way of navigating through that to get to a compassionate response? And the exhibition upstairs is all about that. The 7 steps from getting from a challenging situation to a compassionate response in a healthy way, regardless of whether you're Buddhist or atheist or anyone else. Just basic, fundamental concepts. What other things contribute to being out of balance and unhappy? Ego. That's one of those destructive emotions. I solve my low esteem by becoming arrogant. My low self-esteem by becoming arrogant. This one, envy, is another destructive emotion. Of course the Johnsons got the big cloud. Greed, selfishness. Remember, no one's going to write on your gravestone, had a great house. Anger. Thank you for calling anger management. What the F do you want? Sure, occasional anger is unavoidable. The question is, what's your strategy for dealing with it? What's your strategy for dealing with it? So, what's the antidote? I would suggest empower the individual, because some of the things I'm going to say, they might not work for you. Something else might resonate. So, pick one from column A, one from column B. I don't care. Try them out. See whatever might work for you. Don't try to do everything. Again, you're going to set yourself up for failure. Try out 1 or 2 things. Maybe see if it might work, okay? So, what we think we become. So this is getting into some anatomy, some science. There's a thing called neuroplasticity, which means that we can change the structure and the anatomy of our brain by what we think. This is shown through MRI studies. There are over 100 billion neurons in clusters in your brain. And one cluster is connected to another cluster by a superhighway, okay? This superhighway starts as these cell bodies, they're called with the nucleus, and then there are these axons. That's the superhighway that then goes to another cluster. All right? There's a thing called myelin that wraps around the axon, and it helps conduct electricity more quickly. So if we repeat a thought, whatever it might be, over and over again, 20 minutes twice a week, you can actually show on MRI studies a buildup of myelin around these axons on a particular highway, superhighway. So, as an example, loving kindness meditation is one of those really good forms of meditation. If you practice that twice a week for 20 minutes, after 6 weeks, you can see the changes on an MRI. So that's a positive reinforcement just by practicing it. I feel sorry for attorneys because their job is to fight for their side at the expense of the other side. Constant debate, back and forth. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. So their superhighway is the wrong highway. So when they get home and they're with their spouse, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. So you got to be really careful what you're doing at your work, because it's going to carry over into the rest of your life and the other parts of your life, whether you like it or not. Meditation also hones our ability to stay focused on the present. Because if we're constantly being distracted, we're not really present, okay? And we're not really able to use wisdom to solve problems. So there are lots of forms of meditation around the world. There's sitting meditation, which I see throughout the Himalayas. The photograph in the middle was at the Shilai Temple in California, walking meditation. The next one is in China, standing meditation. But you can also incorporate meditation into other daily activities. Let's say you have a child that's in a football game, soccer. You know, we call it soccer, you call it football. At halftime, get up and walk around the track and do walking meditation. Get on a bike. I bike, so I meditate when I bike. I don't close my eyes, but, you know, I've focused on my breathing and, you know, that sort of thing. This other one is in Cambodia, and they talk about walking up and down the stairs and using that to meditate. Yesterday, before I got on the plane, I was determined that I was going to get a swim in. So I had everything all planned out. I had all my things packed because I drove to Raleigh to get to the plane from my home 2.5 hours away. And I had everything all set. And I said, I'm going to come an hour early so I can get a swim in, get to the place where I go swimming in Raleigh, get out of the car, get my bathing suit, go looking for my goggles. I couldn't find my goggles. Somehow I left them behind. I'm going, darn it. So I left myself extra time. So I'm going on, strolling on my cell phone. Where's the place I can buy goggles? You know, so I go in my car to the first place. The place didn't exist anymore. They were closed. I mean, the place had closed. So I went to Dick's Sporting Goods, which is just another 2 miles away, got some goggles, got back, and rather than a 30-minute swim, I got in a 20-minute swim. So I meditated while I was, before I got on the plane. So my point is you can do that. You can find different things that work for you. But there are also mini meditation. This can also be very, very effective. And this is something that can be used, that I use in medicine, in the operating room also. So one, I would have patients in multiple rooms. You got to go from room to room, then order an x-ray, come back to the room. So when putting my hand on the doorknob, not squeeze it tight, feel the temperature, the shape, take one slow breath. Why am I here? Because I've just come from another room with another patient. I'm going to leave that behind. Take a deep breath, walk in the room. How long does that take? 2 seconds. But repeating that, one patient after another, it's a form of meditation, okay? In the operating room, before going to go do surgery, you scrub your hands. Scrub one finger, the next finger, the next finger, the next finger, the next finger. Go back again. Next one, because you have to do it for 5 minutes. It's a form of meditation, okay? Mindful eating. So the size of your stomach when it's full and not stretched out is about the size of a grapefruit. So when you're filling up your plate with food, if you visualize that, then rather than using the big dinner plate, use a medium-sized plate. Rather than using the big fork, use the salad fork. Rather than the big glass, use the medium-sized glass. You can always go get more, hopefully. So it's a conscious process. And why am I eating? What's the food for? Why am I eating it? Okay, where did it come from? Who am I grateful to for this food to be on my plate? Okay? And the studies show that if you do that process, you end up eating less food but being just as satisfied. Okay? Another one with mindful eating is just take a pea or something that you just put on your plate. Look at it, its color, its shape, its size. Where did it come from? The rain. Who planted the seed? Who had to pick it? Who had to get it here? All the different things. We're all interconnected. We're all interdependent. A lot of things had to happen for this pea to be on my plate. Then pick it up, put it in your mouth, roll it around on your tongue, feel the shape, feel the size, then bite into it, taste it, then visualize it going down your throat. Then start into your regular meal. Doesn't take a lot of extra time, but something that anybody can do, okay? So these are just a few examples. Another is word choice. So yes, I am a physician, I can do surgery, great. But I never refer to myself as a surgeon because that would imply to everyone else and to me, my job is to do surgery. No, my job is to help people. And of the people seen in the office, maybe 10% of them might benefit from surgery. Others don't need surgery at all. But if all my responsibility is I'm a surgeon, then that's not good, okay? Or I might dislike something, but that doesn't mean I hate something. Word choice. A positive smile. Even to a stranger walking, passing him in the street. Just a smile. At first it may seem forced, but after a while it'll become first nature. A specific color. So when I see the color red, I think of the heart. I think of compassion. So anytime I see the color red, I think compassion. You may have some wristband or jewelry, something you wear that reminds you of someone that's important to you or something that's important to you or a core value. So every time you put it on in the morning, think about that, or a color, something like that. A song, a smell, a mantra. Breathing, just slow breathing can be another form of meditation. An evening journal where you just write down at the end of the day 3 positive things that happen. Picture on your screensaver. Guess who's on my cell phone? No surprise there, my 2 granddaughters, right? An access code for your cell phone or for your computer. What are the numbers? What do they mean? Do they have any importance to you? Okay, when I give these talks, I always say quality sleep. That's the cornerstone to good health. Forget everything else I said. One of the people that you're sitting next to, 1 out of 3 of you, statistically, has a chronic sleep problem, okay? So, either you or the person next to you, if you want some sleep strategies, you get a hold of me. Contact at shadesofcompassion.org. I'll send you a handout. Typically after I give one of these presentations, I get an email from at least 2 or 3 people that aren't bashful and to say, please send me that, You're not alone, which comes to the next thing. Give yourself some slack. I saw this sign that I'm about to show you on somebody's bumper sticker the other day, and it said, be kind, we're all idiots. I mean, none of us got it right. We're all making mistakes. I mean, for crying out loud, give yourself some slack, okay? It's okay. It's all right. We're all on that journey. Play to your strengths, okay? Get help where you need it. I'm dyslexic. I hate reading. I hate writing. I'm a visual learner. So I get help in the areas where I need help. Okay? Don't be bashful about it. It's okay. It's all right. Another thing is I talked about before, we are all interconnected and interdependent. This is one of the photographs I got there in Taiwan. I'm really happy to get that one. So we're all dependent. We're all interconnected. Okay? It's good. It's good. Past, present, and future. So just remember that. So what we're doing with the environment now is going to affect future generations. We're all interconnected. We're all interdependent. What we've learned, all based on those things. Another one here I think is important is redefine family. So this is a monk, a senior monk at a monastery in Bhutan, in India, that I met, and we befriended, and I was living at the monastery. One day he invited me to his private quarters just to sit and talk. And I naively started asking him about his family. Soon it became clear he wasn't talking about his biological family. He came to the monastery when he was like 6 years old. And he was talking about the family that raised him, okay? we were horsing around, and the next that day also, some of the little kids, we were playing cricket and rolling around on the ground and all that kind of stuff. So we were taking crazy photographs and all that. So I got to know, some of the little children. So the next day they were having a puja ceremony. They all lined up for the puja ceremony. So the little boy that I was photographing, playing cricket, he was there. This is the boy, so he already knew who I was. This is not a posed photograph. And it just reminds me of this concept of that we're all family. Those of you with Asian, backgrounds know that, the sacred part of the body, the top, only a family member would dare put their hand on the top of a child's head. So here, this signifies family, and the interplay of the hands signifies they're all family. So you may have challenges with some of your biological family members. That's okay. Be respectful to them. Try to be compassionate, but you can step back from some things too if you need to, okay? And redefine family, okay? It's important. Learn when to say no. Learn when to say no. Money management. If possible, and not everyone can, try to live 10% below your means. I always, for decades, bought used cars, usually 2 to 3 years old. That's kind of the sweet spot where they're still in good shape, but you get a significant discount. So, yeah, a lot of you all do the same thing. Then when you want to go shopping or want to go out and get something, ask yourself, there's nothing wrong with treating yourself, but do I need it or do I just want it, and why? Is there a purpose behind it? Okay, does it align with my core values and my goals? But again, treat yourself every once in a while. That's okay too. Do my children need more toys or more time with me? My children, when we go back and talk about our fondest memories, had nothing to do with, a toy. It was the stuff that we did together, right? Here's the big one, gang. Avoid doom scrolling. Everybody know what doom scrolling is? Okay? All that garbage that's on the internet, and you're on your cell phone and you're sucked into all that. We're actually working on a project. I'll be meeting next week with the Minister of Health and the Minister of Education and other folks in Bhutan. We're working on trying to integrate best cell phone practices and social media navigation for the school system for the country. We're doing something similar in India. But anyway, it's a big problem around the world. So we're working with people on that. And negativity bias in the media. They're trying to get your attention by using affective empathy. Hint, hint. That's what they're doing. They're trying to suck you in, trying to get you all upset, okay? And there are a lot of good things going on in the world. So look for the positive. There are a lot of kind acts that are going on all the time. I mean, we're all sitting here because of a lot of things done behind the scenes. Wilson, all the venerables. There's the temple has how many hundred volunteers? How many hundred volunteers? Hundreds of volunteers. Okay, the electricity being on. Where did the water come from? A lot of kindness going on around the world. I was riding my bike a couple weeks ago, and I stopped because I usually turn around to then rest for 10 minutes before biking back. And I was there, and I was resting, and this family walked by, and there was this little boy. He could have been he was probably about 4 years old, 5 years old, and he just picked up a stone, a little pink stone that he was carrying, and he just handed it to me as a gift. So I thanked him for it, and now it sits on the sink where I brush my teeth every morning. Okay? A little thing, but it meant a lot to me. Stay physically active. Okay? Regardless of what form of activity it is, find some sort of a routine that works for you. And I was talking about these other forms of meditation. Try to find something. Give it a shot. Once or twice a week at least. Don't multitask. Don't multitask. When you're eating, try to focus on the eating. Okay? I was at the airport yesterday in Raleigh, and fortunately I had a little extra time after swimming, And I sat down at the restaurant there because getting through security was much faster than I thought it would be. I sat down to eat, and I'm looking around. There's a couple over here. They didn't talk to each other the whole time. They were on their cell phone while they were eating. I looked at two other people over here, the exact same thing. So when you go to the airport, look at everyone. They're trying to do all this different stuff all the same. It's just not good. Okay, try not to multitask. Try to find other ways to get things done. Now that's different than synergies. Finding synergies. When I do like the volunteer work, you okay over there? Good, thank you. I plan my trips so that there's synergies. So as you see here, I have my camera. So when I'm trekking in the Himalayas, I'm getting some physical exercise, carry my camera with me. I'm not schlepping around with a bunch of tripods and equipment. I just have one camera, one lens. I'm ready to go. I'm teaching in the operating room. I'm learning, culture and all that sort of thing. So I'm doing all those things, but I'm not doing them simultaneously, or if they are being done simultaneously, they're synergistic, okay? The other thing is that on some of my trips, I'll take my family members. So the upper left corner there, that's my older daughter, Melanie. She went with me one-on-one to Vietnam. She loved being in the operating room, so she was hanging out with all the residents and teaching everybody English. This was back in the late 90s when they had first opened the Iron Curtain. My younger daughter can't stand the sight of blood, but she's a superb dancer. So this is in Vietnam. She also did it at the Jewish Community Center in Moldova in Eastern Europe. But here, she's teaching dance to deaf children using vibrations so they can feel the music, okay? So she's learning about another culture. She's doesn't need to be in the operating room with me. The other one is of my wife, who loves little children. This is at the Tibet Refugee School in India. So she's working with the Tibetan refugee children. She did the same thing in Malawi with children that were, their parents were lost parents due to AIDS, and was teaching them Montessori techniques in the school. So I'm going to jump over now to the museum exhibition briefly. We're just about ready to wrap things up. So, but first, the exhibition, it had its world premiere at the gorgeous new Tibet Museum in Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama lives, and has since been to different museums and other places around the world. Next goes to Frankfurt, Germany. So the exhibition upstairs, thank you again for the honor of having the exhibition here. We've incorporated some of the collection here, even though it's a different school of Buddhism, with the photographs, which are all from the Himalayas. So what are the 7 steps? When I'm in the operating room to try to help a patient, what's my motivation? What's my primary objective? What's my core value? Step number 1, core value has to be compassionate intentions. So if I don't start with that, then I'm lost before I even get started. So if you're trying to deal with a family member or somebody at work or whatever it might be, step number 1, right mind, right heart. Okay? So once I'm in that mindset, I know what's my guiding principle, then I have to be able to focus. If I'm not able to focus, I'm constantly distracted, then I'm not bringing in information with my heart and with my mind that I need in order to try and help with whatever the problem might be. So that's step number 2, focus. And that's where meditation that we talked about before can be very, very, very important. If I'm focused, then I'm able to recognize my physical and emotional response to the situation. If it's a challenging situation, am I clenching my teeth? Am I breathing hard? Is my stomach churning? Okay, because if I'm upset, or if I'm anxious, or if I'm too emotionally charged, then I can't think clearly. That's that affective empathy I was talking about. Okay? So I've got to be aware, self-aware. So that's step number 3. And that's what we talk about in the 3rd step in the exhibition. And the images and the Buddhist practices, we may or may not realize what we're doing sometimes or why we do one ritual or another, but the underlying purpose of the different rituals and the different activities have an underlying importance related to one of these 7 steps. So that's what we're trying to show in the exhibition, the relationship of our practices. And it could be lighting a candle. That's common in all religions, pretty much, right? So, but what is the purpose behind lighting the candle? What is the purpose of something else, a tradition we might do? Okay? So, recognize how we're emotionally responding and then calm ourselves. Okay, we have to go from the emotional part of our being to the more cognitive, analytical part of our being. Okay? Once we're able to do that, we can see whether, step number 5, there's some destructive emotions that are getting in our way of seeing things clearly. So we all have biases, for sure. Are our biases getting in the way and making it so that we can't see the reality of clearly of what's going on? So we got to get rid of the biases as much as we can, our ego, our greed, our anger, whatever it might be. And then, in the operating room, let's say I was expecting to find something during surgery and something is not looking right, okay, once I get in there. Well, I've got to recognize, I've got to be focused. I've got to recognize I'm getting a little anxious here. I've got to calm myself. I've got to get rid of the idea that I'm the right, I'm Dr. Kolkin, I have all the answers, I'm so smart, and maybe I don't have it right, okay? And then I've got to summon wisdom. What's really going on here? Whatever sources of information I need in order to make a more responsible decision, okay? So I have to bring in all my past knowledge, but also what's here, what's the expectations, et cetera, and then hopefully come up with a plan of action that's guided by compassion. That's step number 7, to respond with compassion. So, compassionate intentions, focus on the present, recognize our physical and emotional response, restore calm, resolve destructive emotions, summon wisdom, and then respond with compassion. I'll leave that up for a minute because I know some people are taking photographs with their cell phones. Oh, also, this presentation is being recorded and will be on the website, YouTube, after editing. So it will be available to everyone here and also those that you might want to share this talk with at no charge. And again, you're welcome to visit the exhibition upstairs and take more photographs. It's all laid out there. Finally, just one last thing, the book, Inner Harmony, Living in Harmony, it's touches on some of these same things, okay, but not as systematically, okay? It's in the bookstore. As I mentioned, it has forwards. The Dalai Lama and also the Queen Mother were kind enough to contribute. It's received, surprisingly, 4 international book awards. All the proceeds from the book, half comes back here to the temple and half goes to the foundation. So just thank you all very much for coming today. And I really appreciate your time and your attention. Don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'm usually pretty good about responding to emails. You can contact me directly at contact@shadesofcompassion.org or through our foundation's website, shadesofcompassion.org. The QR codes also. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for being here.